was a difficult scene to write. But I thought that if I were truly, putting myself out there as an author and being true to the characters, some of these characters are doing really awful things. And it's also very interesting to me what readers will kind of pick up on and call out as the most awful things and versus what's not. So a lot of the early kind of mental manipulation that was happening with Artie, I mean, this woman's mind was completely altered by someone like playing around with her memories. And you've got Ara, who has this like deep emotional trauma. And then here you have this trauma of a sexual nature. So there's kind of this parallelism of these different types of trauma. And it's very interesting, I think, which ones we gravitate towards. And sometimes, I think there's a little bit of sometimes we feel that some are worse than others. But is it truly that the sexual trauma is worse than the emotional trauma or the kind of mental manipulation, that trauma that happened from there? And me as an author, I don't judge that. I mean, I don't think that's my place. But I think it's very interesting to look at, not all trauma is physical trauma. Does physical trauma outweigh mental trauma? And I don't necessarily think that personally, but I think it's kind of up to the readers to kind of make their judgment call and what they think about that. But a lot of it is throughout this book, there is trauma that's happening, and I feel for some parts, people, I guess we're so desensitized to some of the earlier things. So like, people are dying, people being hurt. I mean, there, unfortunately, there are kids that die at some point in the story, which was so hard to write. But it's interesting what we're okay with versus what's crossing the line. And that was something that I really wanted to have the readers really think about that. Like, what's our own personal threshold for how we weigh and how we kind of look at trauma. And so that scene was really hard to write. I love Rudgick so much. And, he's going to be in book 2. I can't say much more than that. But I think there's much more growth that will happen with his character and with Ara's character, and kind of how they kind of move past, some of the really awful things that happened to both of them in book 1.
I'm glad they'll be continuing to grow. When you see all of them interact, people have trauma, and you didn't try to present people who are dealing with these things in a way that was sanitized, or in a way that was presenting them as like the example on how to deal with trauma and health. You presented them as humans that were flawed. And I think that imperfect reactions to situations is a very human thing. I mean, you could have written that scene, as like, this is a 101 on what you should do line by line. But that wouldn't, I don't think, be realistic to how a 16-year-old girl's gut reaction would be in that moment. You instead kind of lean into, I guess, the messiness of it, but that's the reason too. I think that's what makes these characters feel so real, is that you show them as they are, or as they would be if they were, in our world or anywhere else. So, I don't know, I really liked that.
And I think there's a little bit to say. We, when we write stories, do we want to be realistic to how people react? Or do we want the sanitized version? Here is the textbook way you should react. Or do we want to express how people, the various ways that people do react to the things that are happening around them? Adults can have very different ways to act, to react to things. So why would we expect a teen in a story who's already traumatized in a sense to act this kind of perfect way or react this perfect way to something that's happening? I mean, I think it's important for me to always kind of capture the true human nature, and let people grow like we do in real life as we experience things. So that was something that was really important, to always kind of capture these characters and all their flaws. I mean, they've got these great things about them and they've got some not so great things about them. And I want to present all of that, because I think it's important when you're thinking about building a full-fledged kind of realistic character.
And you did that so well.
Thank you.
Absolutely love. I think, I don't know what. Okay, this isn't really. I feel like we were supposed to be talking about Kingdom of Souls and spoilers. What can you tell us about book 2? Is there any little tidbit just exclusive to the newsletter people that come
There is also now a new point of view in book two, and it's from Rudgick's point of view. Yes, so I'm
Wait,
really excited about that.
I'm so
He's
excited.
he's such a fun character to write. I mean, just like even when he was a secondary character for book one, when it was mostly from Ara's perspective, you got like he was like this really fun character, but a little arrogant, a little funny in a way, kind of shoot from the hip kind of guy. And so being able to see the story from his perspective, it's been really fun kind of writing that. So I hope that readers are going to be really excited for that.
I am. I definitely am. I cannot wait. I cannot.
I'll go first, Alexis. I think that most people know this by now, but I hate ketchup.
Absolutely un-American. I'm
It's
sorry.
what? It's like, why would you? Okay, I don't understand. Why is there sugar and tomatoes?
It's
They don't belong together.
Oh, it's so
They're so
good.
opposite. Oh my gosh. And so this is a really weird, but like, I figured this out when I was very young, and so I wouldn't eat pizza when I was young because I thought it was ketchup. So it took me, yeah, for a very long time. And now I love pizza because, okay, for some reason the tomato sauce works, the marinara works for me, but the ketchup itself, there's this, what is it, like sugar, tomato, and vinegar?
And it's like super smooth and just delicious.
Ugh. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it's horrible, horrifying. It's like those are like the ingredients don't belong together. So that's one of my like most hated things.
So what do you do for like oh, okay, so if a veggie burger because you're vegetarian. So what do you
Yeah.
do for your veggie burger? No ketchup? Like what
No.
goes in place? Mustard?
I like mustard.
Well, okay, I can counter that. I've judged you a little bit for your like ketchup aversion. This is a little hypocritical because I actually don't really like the taste of potato chips at all. I like some
What?
flavors if it can cover like I like salt and vinegar and some sour cream and onion if it can kind of cover the potato chip flavor enough to where I can enjoy it. But I genuinely just don't like potato chips that
I'm
are
just
plain at
I'm
all.
what is wrong with you?
I just
There's
it's
like
good to me. Fries are great. I put ketchup on them like a normal person. But potato chips,
well, in fairness, I love tomatoes, but I don't like ketchup. So I can understand that you like fries or potatoes, but you don't like chips.
humans are complex.
But like chips, there's like so many different flavors. I guess this isn't that weird considering the times that we're living in right now, but I am an obsessive hand washer.
Wonderful.
I like wash my hands a zillion times a day, and still it's not enough. And I do it because so I live in a big city. I live in Chicago, and we're always out, and there's public transportation. There are a zillion people, and I'm like, I love being around people, but at the same time, I'm like, germs, wash hands.
What scared me was all of those videos where it was like people or like Twitter posts where people are talking about like they don't wash their hands
Oh
that
yeah.
often. I was like, you're just now starting to wash your hands. Okay, mine is that I was homeschooled from first grade all the way up to the senior year of high school.
Oh
So
my
it's
gosh.
not the fact that I dislike. I loved being homeschooled, but it is kind of like random and weird because
Yeah.
I never stepped foot in a school to actually attend school. First grade, I was done. I just was at home.
So
So
you never even nothing like
nothing. The
okay.
next time, so I walked out of school for kindergarten. I never stepped back into a school as a student until college, my freshman year of college.
Wow. Well, how was that experience? Like not just homeschool, but like then going to like as a student to college away from home.
It was so overwhelming. I think I was just almost like overstimulated by like all of the people and the classes and like having to get place to place. And I went to a very small school,
Yeah.
and it was still it just felt like I was in Manhattan. Like
But
even though
you live in a tiny town.
I know, but I was just so overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, I have to like navigate between these buildings and classrooms and class numbers. So
Yeah.
it was a challenge for sure for that freshman year, maybe even into
Yeah.
sophomore year. But yeah,
It's not super weird, but I love hiking. That is one of my favorite things to do outside of writing. We always kind of talk about, what do writers do if they're not writing? Well, we're writing. When I do have free time, I love to go hiking. So that's kind of like one of my favorite things. My favorite places that I've hiked. I've been out to Deer Valley, Utah, a couple times. Really love that. If you go outside ski season, it's really fun and it's not so busy. I tend to spend a lot of time thinking about my stories and working out plot points.
Yeah, I can imagine the nature being like soothing. It's probably a great place to think.
Yeah, I think so.
You normally alone?
So no, I never recommend hiking alone. Although I did, okay, secret truth telling time. I did hike alone once in Deer Valley and got lost. So I was on a writing retreat, and I went out like no one wanted to hike, and I'm like, okay, well, I want to hike. I'm gonna do it. So I was like, I can go on the trails, and I was supposed to come back in like an hour. I came back like 4 hours later, and okay, I guess this is like the ultimate secret. So I hiked around till I finally found the road to cars passing on, and I called for a car service to pick me up.
Good survival instinct.
It was so funny because the guy's like, "This is a really weird place to get an Uber," or maybe it was a Lyft. I can't remember, but he's like, "This is a really weird place to call." I'm like, "You just don't know the half of it," but yes.
Okay, I have like two facts that are both about fears because I'm just a deeply anxious person. But my first is that I write like dark fantasy and horror. Almost everything that I write has an edge of horror. But I'm terrified by like most horror movies. I watch them through my fingers. I'm just real. I normally can't even watch them like alone. So
I love horror movies. Like,
I love them, but I'm terrified of. I feel like I'm more terrified of them than average people. Which I shouldn't be because I write dark
fantasy. I was like, all of your books are dark fantasy horror books, so I feel like you do well. I'm very surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm a scaredy cat.
And then also it's like the type of horror too. Like I like things when it's like possessions are very tricky because it's like someone's really taking control of your body. And I mean, not that I could talk about this because they're basically like possessions in my book in Kingdom of Souls.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, like, but I feel like I'm a little bit obsessed with that stuff. So I'm kind of the opposite. I love watching horror movies, but I'm not necessarily really into the gory stuff where it's just like blood and guts. I like the kind of suspense and not knowing and the anticipation that you see in some of the horror flicks. Like that's usually what draws me in. And this ideal that there's something that's greater or more powerful than we can ever, we can ever fight. I love cheese, like with a passion, like a lot. And so it's really weird because I feel like I'm the only person in my family that's like really obsessed with cheese. Like I don't like mild tasting cheese. I like cheese that have a lot of flavor. So the stinkier, the better. So like, there's the stinkiness is so good. So they're sharper in taste. And so like some of the cheeses I like, my favorite's probably Camembert. You can get a lot of different kind of Camembert. A Brie is like a Camembert, but it's a lot gentler. But like a true Camembert, when you buy it, you leave it outside of the fridge. So I didn't know that. You don't put it in the fridge. You leave it outside of the fridge. So day after day, it gets stinkier and stinkier, and the flavor gets sharper. Oh my god, yes, I love it. I know.
Is it oozy? It's like an oozing kind
of. It's kind of it's a spread. Like you can spread it. It's got kind of like one of those soft rinds, so you can eat the outside.
Well, even the stinky cheeses, which kind of give me pause, and like the way you describe them.
Try them first. I mean, if you want to, it really kind of comes down to if you like cheese with like a lot of flavor versus kind of more mild flavor. So I hope you guys had fun. We wanted to just kind of wrap up and tell you a little bit about our books again and hope you go out and grab them. So the latest book that I have coming out is Maya in the Rising Dark. Again, this is my middle grade contemporary fantasy.
And I have The Year of the Witching, my debut, which comes out July 21st. If you like dark, spooky things, you should grab yourself a copy. It's available for pre-order now.
Cool. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks so much
Bye.
for having me, Rena.
Yes, you're welcome. Until next time. Thanks, Alexis.